All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the October webinar Wednesday. My name is Jules. I will start with a short look at the agenda for today. I'll be the first to speak. I'll talk to you about the annual conference in Edinburgh next year. And after me, it's over to Tim Williams from UCB, who will be looking ahead to the 2017 PhUSE CSS in March next year, and he will look at the Semantic Technology Working Group. After Tim Williams, it's over to Wendy Dobson, project coordinator at PhUSE, who will talk to you about the CSS 2017 registration overview and the computational science collaboration. We will be collecting your questions throughout the session, so if you have any questions you'd like to ask, please do type them in the chat box that you have on your screens. We will collect them and answer them in the Q&A session after the talks. So I'll kick off with the annual conference introduction. As I said, my name is Jules van der Zalm. I work as a business unit manager at OCS Consulting in the Netherlands. And after I visited my 10th PhUSE conference in Barcelona, I'm very proud to be chairing the next year's conference. During the closing session of PhUSE 2016 in Barcelona, I've been given the opportunity to introduce next year's annual conference. And in this presentation, I'll take you through the same slide deck as I've used in that presentation, although there have been a few tweaks here and there. For the 2017 conference, we will take you to Edinburgh in Scotland. And before I talk to you about the conference venue that we've selected, which I believe is quite exciting, let me show you just a few of the breathtaking sights that Edinburgh has to offer. This is a picture of the old town of Edinburgh, which is the oldest part of Scotland's capital city. The old town has preserved much of its medieval street plan and has many buildings from Scotland's Reformation era, which dates back to the 16th and 17th century. And together with the new town in Edinburgh, this is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This is Edinburgh Castle, which is a historic fortress. It rises above the Edinburgh skyline. And we may even be able to hear the famous 1 o'clock gun, which still fires every day at exactly 1300 hours. This castle itself, it is still in use today, and it's open to the public. It's actually Scotland's most visited paid tourist attraction. So when you join us for PhUSE 2017, it's certainly worth a visit. For those of you who are less into the medieval and more into the modern, Edinburgh houses the Scottish National Gallery of Modern Art. This gallery in Edinburgh houses Scotland's national collection of modern and contemporary art, dating from about 1900 to present. Now, if you remember how I said there's breathtaking sights when I introduced Edinburgh, this is the country's national dish, and I'm quite sure that many of you will know this dish, even though you may not have had the chance to taste it. For those of you that don't know haggis, I will keep it that way. And of course, food goes with something to drink, and if there's anything besides haggis that Scottish are famous for, it's their whiskies. Now let me take you to the conference venue. As I said, this is quite exciting. This is a first for PhUSE. We will be organizing this event in a conference center, which means we're moving away from hotels for the conference itself. I believe this is a reflection of the growth that PhUSE experiences. The location that we have selected is the Edinburgh International Conference Center, or EICC. This place is located very centrally in the city and is literally within walking distance from those landmarks that I've just shown you. It has a huge auditorium. This is the place where the opening and closing ceremonies will be held, as well as the keynote speeches. It can hold as many as 700 attendees, and if needed, we can even still increase that. As you can see from this image, it has a floor that it has a cinema-style setting, which allow a good view on the podium even when you're in the back of the room. Besides a great auditorium, we will have access to excellent breakout rooms where we'll have the individual streams. And of course, there is a very bright and spacious exhibition area as well. We will be working with several hotels in the vicinity of the EICC, so there's no rooms in the venue itself. We will be working with hotels in the vicinity to ensure that all conference attendees can have access to a room that is within walking distance of the venue itself. Now, as the conference chair, I will personally be responsible for all the content of the conference and all the preparation that comes with that. Although I will not be doing that by myself. There's a huge number of volunteers involved who do tremendous amounts of work in their individual streams and in other organizational parts of the conference. And I'm also very happy to announce that Katja Glass from Bayer in Germany will be my co-chair in 2017. Katja works as a programmer of standard software for stat analysis and programming at Bayer, and I've come to know her as a very well-organized and precise person, which I believe are excellent skills for a role like this. The theme that we've chosen for this conference is digital innovations in healthcare. And we chose this theme because it adequately reflects an ongoing trend, not just in our industry, but in many other industries as well, which is that we are digitalizing. We have been digitalizing for decades, and I'm confident that the vast majority of our clinical trial data is now collected digitally from the very beginning, but there is way more to come. If you think about all the data that we are collecting about ourselves through smartphones and smartwatches, not just when we're going for a run, but all day long while we wear them, that's massive. And it's not new that these devices are used in clinical trials, where study participants can collect their health status through apps, and data becomes accessible to the sponsor directly, rather than at or after the next patient visit. And what I'd like to do is talk you through a few projects that rely on the benefits of these technologies. Artemis is the name of a Greek goddess who protects babies and childbearing women. But in this context, it refers to what I believe is a very interesting project. This is about a researcher. Her name is Caroline McGregor. And she wanted to know if there are patterns in the data that is collected by heart monitors, these devices that you get by the side of your bed in the hospital. When Caroline, when she turned to a doctor, what she learned is that important data points like heart rate and oxygen levels, they are recorded only every hour. And all the information between these time points, between these measurements, was lost basically. So then McGregor and her team, she turned to monitors that were keeping track of premature infants in a specific neonatal intensive care unit. And you need to know that babies in this unit, they're born too early, they're young, they're lightweight, and these babies are at a high risk for infection. About 20% of these babies develop an infection, and about 18% of the babies, they pass away because of the infection. That's very serious. So Caroline McGregor, she used her previous research to find out if she could detect any trends in the vital signs of these babies and their infections. And that's where this project Artemis comes into play. Instead of recording one heart rate number per hour, McGregor and the team recorded and stored all heart rate data, which amounted to millions and millions of data samples. And using that data and analyzing that data, what they found is that there is a change in heart rate for these babies, which is usually a telltale sign of infection. And this now allows them to see early warnings of infection upwards of 24 hours before they see any other symptoms, which ultimately saves the lives of thousands of babies. Another project is 23andMe, which is actually the name of an American company. They provide a service. You can mail a sample of your saliva to 23andMe. They'll analyze it in their labs, and what they'll return to you is a full report of your genetic background. So they'll tell you if you go bald at 40. They'll tell you who and where your ancestors are. What they'll also tell you is which diseases you carry or which diseases you may develop in the future. And they'll tell you which medicine you will probably not respond to very well, which may save your life in case of, let's say, a heart attack. This, I think, brings us very close to personalized medicine, in which such or at least very similar diagnostics play a huge role, and you can imagine the amounts of data that you get when you collect these genetic samples. A final example I want to talk to you about are these two, and they're not the only two. These are the logos of Apple Health Kit on the left and Google Study Kit on the right, who are only two of the many players entering this field, this market. Both Apple and Google, they provide platforms that sponsors can use to collect data about patients in their homes. These platforms, they're hooked up to sensors and medical devices, things that track health information like movement of people, their vital signs, but also the support in the dispensing of drugs and in drug accountability. So this is very helpful in running our clinical trials, but also a very different way of running our clinical trials. I think all this technology provides possibilities that are beyond what we can imagine right now. But of course, they also bring challenges. I would like to close this presentation with a few of the questions that I hope that we can answer together in Edinburgh next year. And I'll take you through these rather quickly. Question 1. Where is this digital innovation in healthcare and in pharma? Where do we see it? The term big data, what does it mean in our industry? But also, where is our big data? How do we process these tremendous numbers of data points that we collect? How do we deal with all this data? But also, how does it affect our work? For example, which new roles will we see, and will any existing roles diminish? How will it affect our work? And maybe most importantly, how can we make this technology work for us, and how can we use it to its best advantage? Edinburgh will be the place where we will try to answer these questions and more. The conference will again be a 4-day event, starting on Sunday the 8th of October, and we're closing on Wednesday the 11th of October. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there. Thank you. I'll now switch over to Tim, who will talk to you about the CSS.
Thanks, Jules. And I'll just go ahead by sharing my screen here and ask if people can actually see it and can actually hear me, if someone could give me a confirmation.
Yes. Yes,
okay.
We can hear you and see it.
Great, thank you very much. And I think that was an excellent introduction, Jules, for talking about digital innovation and some of the new technology. And I'm going to speak to looking ahead to the 2017 CSS. If you've never been to this conference before, it's a very interactive conference where you not just go and learn, you actually participate in some of the working groups and projects there. So it's very interactive and really a beneficial conference to attend. I'm going to focus on what is next for the Semantic Technology Working Group. So to get us started, we did have a discussion group, a breakout session for the CS at the Barcelona Annual Conference. And specifically for the Semantic Technology Group, we focused on what we should be doing in the future. And we found through this discussion that there's perhaps the idea that we should focus more broadly on linked data itself, perhaps less on the semantics and inferencing and reasoning, which can be a bit academic and a little bit harder to grasp sometimes. And there are new databases available for us and new technologies and approaches that we might be able to utilize in this space. But first, for those of you on the call who may not be aware of what linked data is, we'll have a little bit of a refresher or a review on this topic. I'm going to speak about two types of graph data stores. The first will be the property graph, specifically Neo4j is what I will talk about or use or demonstrate here, and also resource description framework or RDF. Now there are many different flavors of RDF triple stores. I'm going to show you briefly one called Virtuoso. There are even now new ones that are a hybrid approach between property graph and RDF. One that comes to mind is Stardog. So this is a rapidly evolving space and a very good time for us to consider involvement and adoption of these technologies. To see how these property graphs versus RDF triple stores store their data, it's essentially one value or thing linked to another value or thing with a relationship. In RDF, we have the concept of what's called an RDF triple, where we have a subject linked to an object using a predicate relation. It is somewhat similar in Neo4j, which is a property graph where we have a node or value linked to another node or value using a relationship between them. One of the differences, and there are several differences between these two, but a key one is the fact that you can attach property value pairs to both the nodes and to the relationship between the nodes. So if this first node represented me, I have a first name and a last name. This other node might be where I work, which has a company name and a company location, and the relationship between myself and the company could be my hire date. Now, RDF does not use this. You would expand the graph in RDF to add additional triples to add that type of information. Now, like I said, there are a lot of other differences between the two, but for our purposes today, that's one of the key ones. We cover a lot more material in terms of linked data and property graphs and graph data in the Semantics 101 for Pharma workshop that we had at the Barcelona conference. We'll also be having an interactive hands-on workshop coming up at the CSS in the spring. I'll talk more about that in a moment. So as an example, I'm going to show you some of the work I presented at the annual conference from my paper, Interactive Visualization of Linked Data, so some of you have seen a couple of these slides before. When you approach any data problem, what you often do is you go to the whiteboard and you start diagramming out the types of relationships you have in your data. So using the Barcelona conference as an example, I might model it as follows. Attendee is from a country, they work at a particular pharma company or biotech, they may author a presentation, and that presentation is in a conference stream. I've attached various property value pairs to the nodes. I did not for the relations because of limited data and I wanted to keep things simple. Now the beauty of a property graph like Neo4j is that the whiteboard model that you draw out for human understanding is the data model in the database, and as a result closely mirrors the query language as well as the result that is returned. So it's very intuitive in this way. So if we were to take a look at the registrations and presentations from the conference as a graph, we could see something like this. So here we have people as the little yellow dots or nodes, countries in green, the companies they come from are in blue, presentations in red, conference streams here in orange, and you can see all of this interconnected data, and we can mouse over and see some of the information that might be of interest to us. Here we have the workshops, and so on. So that's visually interesting, and it does contain some information for us, but wouldn't it be nice if we could actually query the graph itself to explore these relationships and the paths between the data points? So using Neo4j and its Cypher query language, we can do this. We can ask simple questions like who is the author of a particular paper, but we can also ask more complicated questions. Now, PhUSE is very much about cooperation in a pre-competitive space, so we might be interested in finding presentations where authors from more than one company came together to cooperate and present a paper. So I won't bore you with the details of this query, but let's go into the Neo4j database and actually run a query that will show us this result. And I've conveniently stored it here. I'll pop this out and zoom in a little bit to show us some more detail. And we find that there were actually 10 presentations where authors came together from more than one company. And we can explore this data further by additional queries or even just by mouse click. So I can expand this node out to find the two authors of this particular paper, and we can see that it was the title here, the conference stream that it was in, and we can expand out the author nodes to see what companies they came from. So in fact, my query is correct. We have authors coming together from both Phaestar and Roche to create this paper that was presented in this conference stream. And you can continue to explore the data in this way. Perhaps we want to see all of the attendees from Roche, so we can expand that node, and not surprisingly, there were many. Or we could see what other papers were in this particular stream, and so on. So you can explore the data in this way by mouse click or by query. Now, in terms of RDF, switching gears a little bit here to a different type of linked data store. It is a slightly different data model and specification. So here at the top is an RDF format called terse triple language, or TTL, which is more human readable than what we see below. But here we are defining a thing. So this is the subject. These are the predicates in the middle, and then the objects on the right. So this thing is a study or clinical trial. It has a label, and it has a phase. So right here we can see that we were talking about a phase 3 clinical study. The machine sees things slightly differently. It expands them out into what are called HTTP URIs. Again, you don't have to know all of this detail. Other than for our purposes today, it makes it very easy to display and follow the links in a web browser. So we can do things like show the relationships between studies and pools. So this was an example that I created internally at UCB and then anonymized for display here today. And we can see the studies color-coded by their phase that contributed to a couple of data pools that were used for submissions. Now this is somewhat interesting to the programmers, but they might want to find out more information about a particular study. So they can actually select one here and click on it. And this takes us into the database. And this is a faceted browser view within the Virtuoso triple store that shows all of the triples associated with this particular study that I collected, just as an example. And we see here that it was coded in Medra 9 for the adverse events. Well, maybe I want to see all of the studies in my little collection here that also use Medra 9, and I can just click on that, and then it will provide me with a list of all of the other studies in my little collection here of 35 studies that were coded using that particular version of Medra. And then I can keep following this list into another study. Maybe I want to see all of those that had adult-only populations, so I can click on that and see that list of studies and continue to explore the data in this way at really no extra cost to me because it is linked data. So we'll just go back now and further talk about leveraging existing linked data sources. This is the real strength of linked data. Not only do you link your internal data together, but you can combine it with existing data that's out on the internet already. For example, CDISC standards as RDF, the foundational standards, are available here on the CDISC website. You can go in and download CDISC terminology and a lot of other things here that you can then combine with your own data to enrich it. You can also harvest data from the linked open data cloud. So there are a lot of online data sources. You can think of each one of these little nodes here as a source of data, with the pink area being life sciences, which we can zoom into a little bit briefly and go over and down here and see some of the life sciences data. Lots of data, billions and billions of triples available from things like clinicaltrials.gov ported to linked data. There's a lot of genomics data, a lot of chemical structure data. You can combine and enrich your own internal data sources by executing a query online. Now, you should not reinvent the wheel when you're talking about terminology and defining your own ontologies and vocabularies. There are a lot of vocabularies already available online. This is one search engine here which has almost 580 vocabularies available. So if you want to talk about something, let's say like blood pressure, we can go out here and do a search for that term and find that it has already been defined in other vocabularies, so everyone can use the same terminology to know that they're talking about the same thing when they talk about blood pressure. So it's very useful to do that. Many, many resources available online that you can explore. So that was a very, very quick introduction to linked data and some of the concepts around it. We do have several projects ongoing and also wrapping up within the Semantic Technology Working Group. We have clinical program design that is taking those concepts and mapping them to an ontology. A white paper is forthcoming and a publication from that. Regulations to RDF, or Reg to RDF, as it is known, as a searchable user interface for subject matter experts based on a linked data backend. There's concept maps for Part 11 and 201, and they're extending to more guidance. This is very active. The FDA has a lot of interest in this area too. I co-lead the analysis results and metadata project with my colleague Mark Anderson. We're just wrapping up this project now, and we have an RDF Data Cube technical specification available, as well as an R package that you can download from GitHub and start experimenting in R. So this will take clinical trials results data and create a multi-dimensional RDF data cube from that data. So it's a bit complicated, takes a little bit of time to understand, but we're looking in the future to simplify that and be able to deploy that. And there's a white paper forthcoming from our group as well. Which brings us to the discussion of what's new for the Semantic Technology Working Group. So we are at a bit of a fork in the road here, a time to reformulate and rethink what it is we do and plot a way forward. And I think one of the most interesting things that we need to do is look at business case development for linked data projects. If you want to start using linked data technology within your company, one of the first things you will be asked for is a use case and business case. And I think we can leverage some experience we already have within the industry to perhaps develop some templates or ideas for how you can take this back to your company and start developing using linked data. Converting define XML to RDF might be an easy, quick win. It's very easy to convert XML to RDF, so that might be an interesting project for someone. An idea that came up at the CS Discussion Club was taking EMA study registration and posting that at least internally as RDF, and you'll find that this will lead to a lot of efficiencies and data consistencies, even though you might not yet be able to submit that as RDF. Process or code dependency mapping with Neo4j is one that is near and dear to my heart. I've used it for a number of projects already. It's a great way to see program dependencies, code dependencies, and interactions between data inputs, outputs, and code. And brought up at the CSS last year from one of our FDA colleagues was the chance to maybe take some examples from the Clinical Data Reviewer Guide and have a linked data backend. So take a couple of figures, make them interactive figures, and also tables based on linked data, and show how that would work. I think this would be an excellent proof of concept that we could demonstrate to both to other companies, but also to the FDA to show the value. And there are many, many more. So let's get together and have a conversation about where we want to take this exciting technology. Coming up, there is a PhUSE SDE single-day event, the title of which is Leveraging Innovative Technology to Move Pharma Out of the Stone Age. A little bit of a jab there at ourselves. We really need to do this. We are a little bit slow in the uptake of new technology. And within this single-day event, we have 3 talks on graph data, which I will give one, and we have 2 other very excellent talks coming up on that topic. So this really is becoming a thing within pharma. Unfortunately, just saw the other day that this event is sold out, but do look for the proceedings to become available afterward. Coming up, the PhUSE CSS in March. Mark this on your calendars. Registration will be opening soon. I believe Wendy will speak to this in a moment. And I will be giving an introduction to linked data as a hands-on workshop. In the past, it's just been a presentation because of the depth of material. But we're going to try to focus this down into some hands-on work with Neo4j and Resource Description Framework, or RDF. It is limited to 20 registrations, so when you see the registration for the CSS come out, I advise you, if you're interested, please register right away. And we are also floating the idea of perhaps having a Neo4j hackathon at the event where we can get together and work on a linked data project using Neo4j or an RDF data store. So keep your eyes out for that. If you are interested, please send me an email, or Scott Palavuni. We're 2 of the 3 co-chairs of the ST working group. Express your interest, give us some ideas for projects, and how you'd like to participate. We really do need your input here. So I'm going to go ahead and hand off to Wendy at this point, if I can do so. And I'll be available for questions also at the end of this session. So Wendy, I believe it's all yours now.
Thank you very much, Tim. Can everyone see my screen?
I can see it.
Wonderful, thank you. So just to follow on basically from what Tim was saying, my name is Wendy Dobson. I'm the PhUSE project coordinator, and I'm going to be just taking you through the registration and the upcoming Computational Science Symposium. This will be taking place in March at the Silver Spring Civic Centre. We'll start at 4 p.m. on the Sunday, which will be the 19th, and we'll conclude on 5 p.m. Tuesday, the 21st of March. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to engage with the FDA and other regulatory agencies. Working groups such as Semantic Technologies, which Tim was talking about, are going to continue the collaborations, but also, there'll be opportunity to provide updates on the projects that they've been working throughout the year on. There will be presentations from FDA and other regulatory agencies, as well as workshops and poster sessions and many more. Registration will open on the 1st of November. What I'd really like to highlight is we are only limited to 300 attendees, so please, if you're interested, do register early to avoid any disappointment. We have secured a special rate at the Marriott Courtyard Hotel, which is located near the venue, and you can register via the PhUSE website. All details will be on there. All details are on there at present, but registration goes live, as I say, on the 1st of November. Throughout November, December, and leading up to the event in March, there will be the monthly webinars, and we will be continuing our theme of March into March. So please do, if you get the chance, register to hear the latest information regarding the symposium. And as you can see, we have many media outlets, so do please keep an eye on these with regards to getting regular updates, and as we develop the agenda further, all that information will be posted on our website. And finally, if you do get the opportunity, please download the PhUSE app, which will be extremely useful, obviously during the conference as well, as we'll be able to put live updates out there. Thank you very much. I hope to see many of you at the conference. And I'm now going to hand back to our organizer.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Tim, as well. I think these were very interesting talks, and I'm confident that there is something in there for all of you. If you have any questions after we close this call, please feel free to approach either myself via my full name at phuse.eu or via info@phuse.eu. Any questions are very much welcomed over there. That concludes this webinar Wednesday. I hope you've enjoyed this session, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. Thank you very much.
Hi, Jules. Don't think you can hear me. Oh, what's the chat gone?
if you can hear me.
Hi, Jules. Hi, yes,
Oh, hi.
I can hear you
Hi,
now.
yes,
Hello.
okay. What? Yes, here we
Yeah,
are.
that's fine. We
All
can
right.
switch everything off now, so that was great.
All right. Great.
Yeah, there were no questions, so I guess, as you said, if anyone can think of anything, they can. In fact, actually, everyone has my email on the invitation, so usually people come back and ask questions by email. So
Great.
if there's anything, I can forward it on.
Yeah, sure. I had to improvise there a bit. I didn't expect the the last few words, but that's fine.
I know, no, well that's the thing, you never know if people are going to ask questions or not, and I think I was hoping we'd make it up to the 3/4 of an hour. 40 minutes isn't bad, so I think it all panned out really well, and it was just enough.
I went through my text a bit too fast, I think. So that's one of my one of my traits. I tend to speak too quickly